Recording in progress.
Okay, I'm going to call tonight's meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember McCardle.
Here.
Councilmember Murray.
Present.
Councilmember Ryan.
Here.
Councilmember Sonmore.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Here.
Councilmember Woodard.
Here.
Mayor Matsumoto Wright.
Here. So the first thing on our agenda tonight is the review of the resolution to approve proposed 10-year waste management agreement. And I think that's with Phil. It does say that. Okay, Doug, it does say that.
Everybody see that? Okay, good. Well, good evening, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem Wall, and council members. Phil Williams, Interim Public Works Director, here to do a little trash talking tonight. I think you're all really aware that the city has partnered with Waste Management for a really long time. I wasn't even able to figure out exactly how long, other than it's more than 35 years, to provide solid waste services to the city and our citizens for a very long time. So quite a few contracts have been executed with them, and we're now in a position of needing to do another one. The agenda, we'll walk through it in about this order. First, we need to talk about some housekeeping items, which are amendments to the existing contract to extend the date so that we have time to process this new contract. We'll walk through that. We'll talk about how solid waste services are procured in the state of Washington. There's a variety of options for that. Our list of options currently are narrowed down to this one, I think, but it's good to note in the future what options you will have. Now, I apologize for, I think it's the smoke, I'm not sure, but I may be clearing my throat a little more often than I'd like. A little bit about the history. Mostly, I just mentioned that. It's been a really long partnership with Waste Management that I think has largely been seen as successful from what I've heard. We'll talk about the current contract and the terms that are in that, and then how the new contract differs from it, which is very small differences. I think that's a good thing. There's not any major changes proposed, but we'll talk about the length of the new contract, the service levels that it will have, spend a little bit of time talking about price inflators. So anytime you're out trying to sign a long-term contract with somebody to provide a service for you, there's got to be something in there usually that will provide some discipline as to how those prices will be adjusted over time. And there are some options there to talk about, and we have a recommendation on that. And then, of course, here mainly to seek City Council feedback and get some discussion going. There will be another opportunity, if you want to avail yourselves of it, on the 17th, that we've put a placeholder in if there's more questions or discussion necessary. So talking about the extensions of the current contract, this contract was signed on October 1st of 2014, an 8-year contract. Of course, it would have expired on October 1st of this year. So we worked with you and the company and negotiated an extension, which you approved on the 19th, your meeting on the 19th of September, for a 1-month extension to the end of October. We had planned to present the draft services contract on October 13th, which we will do tonight, but then follow it up with a hearing and take action on the 17th. Great idea. Didn't quite work out. The notice for the public hearing was set to be published on October 7th, but according to the state law that surrounds the procurement of these types of services, that doesn't quite meet the definition of the 10 days required of notice. Looks like going from the 7th to the 17th is 10 days, but nonetheless, it didn't meet that criteria. So we had to now extend the expiration of the first contract yet again, this time just for 2 weeks. That's all been agreed to. It's in your packet. I think it might be good just to get this housekeeping thing out of the way to maybe deal with that right now and it's fresh in your mind. If you have any questions about this 2-week extension, happy to try to answer those. And oh, by the way, I think, I can't see on my screen, but Marcella Manabusen, who's a public projects or public contracts coordinator for waste management, happens to be our waste management contract person, should be on the line as well tonight. So if you have any questions about this extension that either she or I could answer now, that'd be great. If not, maybe somebody could make a motion to authorize the city manager to sign that extension.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to authorize the acting city manager to sign the agreement for a 2-week extension.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. That's great. So I said I'd talk a little bit about how solid waste services can be procured in Washington State. RCW 3523, the state doesn't dictate how you do that. There's a variety of options you can use, which is nice to have that flexibility here. The first one I'll mention is negotiation. That's what we have always done. At Mountlake Terrace, you have signed a variety of contracts with the same vendor over a long period of time. It's a pretty simple approach. You know, you've known each other for a very long time. You know what the current contract and how it's been administered. You sit down and decide what you might like to change about it in the next one. They have their own wish list. We have ours. You negotiate. You come up with a draft. Let the public know about it. Give them an opportunity to comment on it. Take it to the council and get it approved. That's what we've been doing. But there are other things, just so you know. You could put it out to bid. As you know, if you put it out to bid, the only way you can discriminate between the bids is on price only. So you would have to have an extremely detailed set of, probably an entire contract already written out that you're very happy with, and all of the details spelled out. Otherwise, you're going to be disappointed not only in the product, but you will get the cheapest service possible, likely that way, but you may not be happy with it. The more common approach when people do go out seeking proposals would be to issue an RFP. Then you can compete on a variety of different things, not just price. Price can be part of it. Usually it's a fairly heavy part of it, but the quality of the services, the reputation of the vendor, their financial horsepower, their experience of their company, the experience of the particular team that they'll assign to the project, all of that can be a part of your scoring, and you can select on the best overall proposal. That's a fairly common thing. It's been done, as near as I can tell, I don't know, maybe half a dozen times in the last 5 years, if I've seen them all in the Puget Sound area. And they're a lot of work. You usually have fairly major outreach to the public to let them comment on the services, customer satisfaction surveys, and usually takes about a year to 18 months to do that. In this case, Mountlake Terrace didn't get started in time to go out and do that. So, but that's a good way to go, and I'll talk more about that at the very end of our discussion tonight. Or you can turn it over to the state. The Washington Utilities and Transportation Commission will do this service for you. They have the entire state carved up into areas where these G certificated haulers will be assigned to pick up and provide solid waste services in your area if you ask them to do that. The rates, generally, I would say, are a little bit higher. Service levels sometimes are a little bit lower, but it's sort of simple and easy. It's most beneficial to really small cities, really small cities with limited budget and staff. And of course, it's the way to do it in the unincorporated areas of all of our 39 counties. That's still an option for cities, though, and some do it. I mean, Edmonds, Linwood, use the UTC process to procure their solid waste services, and other places. Or you can provide it yourself. This is one that isn't done as often, but I've listed some cities here that do it. I've worked for 2 of them, Spokane and Marysville. Marysville was only 28,000 people, I think, when I was there, and they had their own little garbage crew and an old truck, and we went out and bought them a new one, and they were quite happy continuing to provide services. Now they've tripled in size, and I know they've bought 3 trucks now, and they're still collecting the trash in Marysville with city employees, but they do not do the recyclable collection and processing and marketing, nor do they do the organics collection piece of it. They just do the trash. Spokane, on the other hand, does everything. When I had this job there, garbage was part of the Public Works package, and we had 225 employees that just were in the solid waste division that drove all the trucks, collected all the stuff, ran the transfer stations, ran the landfills, and they just continue to do it over there. I guess they're happy with it. It seemed normal to me when I was there. Now it seems quite unusual, and it's not very common for a small city to get involved in that. When you think about the cost to play, just that initial investment of garbage trucks, somewhere between $500,000 and $700,000 now. You got to hire the people and arrange for the usually compressed natural gas fueling on something like that. You have to have the room, you have to have the equipment. If you can spread that out over a lot more customers, those basic fixed costs, you might be able to do it cost effectively, but when you're pretty small, it doesn't work. But I just thought I'd at least mention those are all ways to go in the future if you see an advantage to that. Right now, I think we're back to negotiation, so we'll walk through this stuff. Before we show you the rates that are proposed in the new contract and try to compare them with some others that you might want to know how we compare with other cities, that's usually part of it. It's really tough to do this apples to apples. It's hard enough with water, sewer, and storm services. When you get into solid waste, there's just so many variables. Everybody chooses to do it a little different. Just some of them I'm mentioning here. Utility taxes and administrative fees. Sometimes they're included in the published rate. Sometimes they're just taken out of the revenues and the customer doesn't actually see them. So comparing rates can have a disparate impact if you don't know that. There are different service levels. Certainly we have different vendors, Waste Management, Republic, Recology, and a number of others that do things a little differently. They all have their own formula. If you're comparing with another city, what year did they sign that contract? Are they in the 9th year of a 10-year contract and they're about ready to get hit with a big rate increase? Or did they just sign a new contract? That's an important variable. Weekly versus biweekly, as you know, our services here are all inclusive for one price. The most common level of service here is a 35-gallon garbage can, and that's how your services are priced. You do not pay any more for the opportunity to collect and get rid of recyclables, and therefore reduce your can size on the solid waste side and save money. You also don't pay for organics collection. Those last two are done every other week here. You have the option, though, of just getting a bigger container. There is no cost. You could get a 96-gallon container, pick it up every other week, rather than a 45-gallon container and have it picked up each week. So I think weekly versus biweekly is in this mix of difficult things to account for in a comparison. And then there's different disposal costs. Depends on where your vendor takes the material they collect, especially the garbage. Which transfer station do they take it to? Whose system is that in? And what's the tipping fee for that material? Because that's a big part of the overall cost too. And different container sizes. We have 35-gallon. A lot of the rest of them have 32-gallon containers. There's a little difference there too. So it makes it tough. But getting to the contract, there's just some summaries here. The first column is just the current contract. The second one would be this new proposed 10-year contract, and some of the benefits listed on the right-hand side. So as we said, the current contract went from 2014 to now. The start date on the new contract will be the 8th of November if you approve it on the 7th, and it'll go till the 8th of November of 2032. You'll also have 2 options to extend for 2 years each. That is entirely our option, not theirs, if you want to take advantage of that when the time comes. The first year rate increase could be either 15% or 22%. I'll talk a little bit about that. It depends on that inflator issue. But they have, from Waste Management's point of view, fallen behind over the last 8 years. The inflator that is specified in the contract has not kept pace with what their expectations would be for revenue and to cover their growing costs. And those are kind of listed here. Labor costs have gone up more quickly, maintenance, especially fuel costs. And then a big one you've heard about, I'm sure, before. It's been going on for a little while now, but since our contract was signed in 14, at that time, China was the bucket that took virtually 2/3 of all the recyclables collected in the United States. And they weren't too discriminating or picky about that. The level of contamination that they would allow to exist in that recyclable stream was pretty high, and they got fed up with it. They started issuing warnings that say, hey, this stuff needs to be cleaner. We won't take it anymore. And they warned us for 2-3 years and then finally just pulled the plug. And so now we're having to develop, and Waste Management has developed mostly domestic markets for this stuff, but the quality of it now has to be much better. It's gone from about 10% allowable contamination down to 0.5%. So that's a 20-fold decrease in the amount of contaminants that you can have. Well, you have to invest a lot of money to get to that level. So that has increased costs as well. So they're looking for some initial rate increases. And to make that a little easier for our ratepayers, they offered to break that up into 2 pieces, a 15% in the first year, 2023, and 7% in the second year. Service frequency, not really changing. Garbage is, of course, weekly. That's the case just about everywhere. Recycle is EOW, or every other week, with a 96-gallon cart. Organics is every other week as well. You can also get a 96-gallon cart there. There's no cost for those 2 services above and beyond what you would pay for the solid waste disposal. So there's a couple options here. It'll take a minute to talk about. You can leave the service levels where they are. You could, it is an option, remove the organic service from that package and have it be on a subscription-only basis, which if you had customers out there that chose not to take any organics service, they could save about $8 a month, which sounds, yeah, okay, well, let's talk about that. But this note here that's attached is a really important one. House Bill 1799, which was passed in the last session, is focused entirely on increasing the amount of organics that are separated from our waste stream and put to good use. And what it does is it requires organics to be offered at, if you're over 25,000 population, by January 1st of 2027. So you've had this service for quite a long time. So if you decided to put it to a subscription, in a short while, you'd be right back putting it in place. You'll easily be at 25,000 people. I think you would all agree. You're close to that now. You're 22.5 or something. And all the development that is targeted to come here going forward, I'm sure you'll be there in a year or 2, probably. So we would recommend we just stay with the current service level, but we wanted you to know there was an option there. Their vehicles, just to, how did that happen? Their vehicles, Currently, they're 10-year-old vehicles getting towards the end of their useful life that serve Mountlake Terrace. They are compressed natural gas fueled. The new ones, which they will order as soon as the contract gets signed, will also be CNG fueled, but they're new. They have the much more efficient engines, and they're much quieter and lower emissions. Plus, they will be fueling them not by buying compressed natural gas on the open market, which just is more carbon emissions, but by taking their recovered natural gas from their landfills. When you close a landfill cell and it's just sitting there cooking because all the moisture and the organics, and in an anaerobic environment without oxygen, it produces a lot of methane. They collect that in pipes. They take the moisture out of it, dry it up, and then they can use it as a fuel. And they use it to fuel their garbage trucks. So that's a real step forward from an environmental and a carbon standpoint. That'll be what the new contract will have in it. And as I said, the vehicles run much more efficiently and quieter. They're up to approximately 10 decibels quieter than the current trucks that are out there on the road. I think people will appreciate that. That's a lot. 10 decibels is quite a lot. Community donation, just a couple of quick things. They'll be making a donation to the city of $20,000 a year during the life of the contract. You can use it however you see fit. It would seem to some of us that maybe trying to figure out how to use that to enhance our environmental performance might be a nice fit with this contract. But there is no restriction on how it's used. Mountlake Terrace customers get access to this waste management app, which is fairly common nowadays, but some of the benefits are listed here. They so want people to sign up for that they'll give $1 for each person that does so, up to 1,500 customers, the first 1,500 customers that sign up for those services, or those that choose to go with paperless billing, or those that enroll in auto pay. Let's see. I think that's all I'd say about that. Extra garbage coupons. This is something I understand our community has very much appreciated. They're going to add one more to what you currently have in your contract. So you will have 5 coupons that you can use throughout the year when you just can't get everything into a 35-gallon can. And those are worth, and Marcella, are you on the call? Yeah, I think you, yeah, there you are. Marcy, I guess she goes by, and I call her that. But those are about $7.84 a piece, aren't they, I think? If there was an extra charge, if you set an extra bag out or an extra can out,
That's correct.
you know, you'd be paying $7.84 for each one of those. So that's pretty close to the high $30 range. So that's a nice feature. Now to show some comparisons here. This is just a list of kind of random cities in our general area. Edmonds these are cheaper at the top and more expensive at the bottom. We always add Seattle at the bottom of everything just so they are the 800-pound gorilla. It's kind of nice to know what goes on down there. They have very high service levels. It's a very expensive program, and the monthly cost reflects that. Edmonds is, this is based on sound disposal. Edmonds has got kind of a complex system over there where there's a little bit of waste management, a fair amount of Republic Services, and sound disposal that collects it downtown. And I've got the camera in front of my, there it is, 2782, 2886 for Shoreline, who's using Recology. And then in yellow there's where Mountlake Terrace is currently. And this is all based on the most popular option in Mountlake Terrace, which is the 35-gallon can. So you would be third on this list at $30.48 right now. If we approve this contract, and the 2023 rates would go up by $4.57 to $35.05, and you would be in the middle of the pack in this set of comparators. Any questions about that?
Go ahead.
Microphone?
Just because I was calculating it out, and it looked like we would raise our rates. If it was 22%, it would be about $8 per month on the average. And so our existing rate is 30, and we normally pay about 78 for every 2 months. So I'm trying to figure out where the extra $18 is from.
There could be some taxes involved in that, but our rate right now on a monthly basis for the 35-gallon cart service with the organics and the recyclables is $30.48. I'm showing you the 15% rate increase here, and it would go up by 7% the following year. There's no CPI involved in that. Those are just fixed rates the first 2 years. And then you'd get into what inflator do you use to adjust the services beyond 2024? All I've shown here is what they would be in 2023 with that 15% rate increase. Obviously, they'd be a couple of bucks higher than that if you went to 22%. And I'll talk about why that's even mentioned in a minute. But
And it says the EOW organic, so would,
every other week.
and that's with it, but customers can choose to be without it, and that would remove $8?
What I was trying to explain was that Waste Management has said that if you didn't have everybody on organic service, but instead did it by subscription, obviously their number of customers would drop off that are paying rates. They wouldn't have as great of an expenses too, because they wouldn't be serving everybody in town. But those that chose not to take the service would have their monthly bill go down by about $8. That's correct. I think also the amount of yard and garden waste, and food waste that we get out of our waste stream, which is a goal, would also probably drop if you did that. Plus, you're probably looking right into the teeth of having to do it anyway, not that far down the road. Any other questions on it? Okay. Let's talk about this escalator thing just a little bit. So there's several common escalators that are maintained by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which is, of course, a federal agency. It isn't math done by Waste Management, and just to point that out, it's done by a government agency. A pretty impressive amount of work they do every year. There's the CPIW, which is the price index for urban wage earners and clerical workers. That's been around a long time. It was thought at the time to represent more the people that work for an hourly wage, call it blue collar, whatever you want to call it. How do their basic costs go up from year to year? And that one is pretty common in labor contracts. It's currently the escalator we use in our solid waste contract, that one. There's another one, CPIU, and that's the consumer price index for all urban consumers, not just hourly wage earners and clerical workers, but for everybody across the entire spectrum. So they do those two, and they also do them for the entire country, by different regions of the country, and for approximately 25 different metropolitan areas, including Seattle, Tacoma, and Bellevue. They produce a separate inflator for each of those for our own area. What's proposed in the contract is to look at the national indexes rather than local indexes. I would say that price inflators, gets a little tricky if you haven't looked into it before, but are also broken down by specific sectors of the economy. So what rolls into that CPIU inflator is a list of maybe 50 different parts of the budgets for these people. And, they got transportation and food and energy and all of these things, and they're all inflating at different rates. For example, food is broken down between groceries that you would take home and prepare meals, as opposed to dining out, as opposed to fast food. They track all of that stuff, and it all rolls up into one sector called food. Well, services are done the same way. So there's actually are separate inflators for water sewer services and garbage and trash services, as well as a combined water sewer trash inflator. And so I just am marking that as WST. You'll see some more of that later, but that is the inflator that Waste Management has based their pricing on in this draft contract with the 15% initial rate increase. The current contract uses CPIW. So what does all that mean? They're offering us a 15 and a 7 in 23 and 24 to catch up with their increased costs that they've experienced that have not been fully recovered by CPIW inflation, and are suggesting the new contract use this other escalator because they think it's more appropriate to their business than is an urban consumer inflator. Should the city prefer to continue to use CPIW, they would adjust the initial price to 22%. So that's where that 22 comes in versus the 15. So how do you make the decision between that? Did a little math here. I don't know if you can see all of that. I can't. Let me go down here. So across the top are the years of the contract. Starts January of, or it actually starts on November 8th of 2022, but the price adjustment, the initial price adjustment would be January 1 of 23. So your current rate is here at $30.48. If you add 15% of that, it comes up to it comes up to $35.05, as we said before. That's using their inflator. The top number at $37.19 is, I'm going to explain that in a minute. You can't predict the future, right? You don't know where inflation is going to go, let alone which inflator will track it one way versus another. But if you look in the rearview mirror, and I did, over the last 20 years, CPIW clearly ended up with less inflation than the water sewer trash business experienced, which you'd think, well, it'd be good for us if we could hold it to CPIW. But they know that too, so they're proposing higher rates in 23 and 24, so you start off with a higher number and then inflate it a little bit slower and end up in the same place. I did some checking on that. So if you look in the rearview mirror and throw out the pandemic, to me, the pandemic has just messed everything up with relationship to inflation globally. I'd like to think we could maybe agree that it's likely that some sort of bubble, I mean, at some point that will be over, it'll be fully absorbed, and perhaps the 17 years of history prior to that, we would revert back to something resembling how that would behave. So I just said, let's assume that and see how that works out. And you can see that in the, in the first 3 years there, where it says yearly dollar difference, if you use their inflator, the WST, you would save $25.60 the first year if you were paying solid waste rates on a 35-gallon cart service. You would save $27 in the second year and $15 in the third year. After that, again, if these inflators track the way they did for 17 years, you would start saving money. And if you add up all those numbers, the positives and the negatives, you would have saved at the end of 10 years about $119. But look also at what you've spent. At $35.05 a month, you're going to be spending in a year about $446. Run that out to the right, you'll be spending over $5,000 for solid waste services over this decade. And you would have maybe saved $119 if you believe any of this story that I've told as being likely. So I guess to cut to the chase on the escalator, I would say due to the uncertainty associated with speculating on how various cost inflators will perform in the future, not in the past, plus the likely small impact over time, that's only 2.3%, I think, and the discounted value of future savings. So those future savings that are going to come at the end of the contract aren't worth nearly as much as they would have been at the start of the contract. So if you brought that back to a discounted amount, the number gets even smaller. So for those reasons, plus the fact that those first 2 years are guaranteed savings for our customers, that leads us to say that we would recommend you approve the contract as drafted using this water sewer trash inflator and not run the risk or try to gamble on what might happen in the future. So that's one recommendation we have. And just to put that in dollar terms, as I said, the 35-gallon service would be increased by $4.57 per month in '23, and in '24, that would add an additional $2.46 per month. And then CIP would kick in for the remaining 8 years and any extensions that you opted to exercise. Staff recommends, we recommend that the city monitor costs, performance, customer satisfaction during the life of this next contract and be disciplined about that. And then consider the option, at least, not recommending you issue an RFP in the future, but at least consider the option of issuing an RFP for these services, but start that approximately 18 months before this next contract were to expire. So you have the opportunity to do it if you wish, you have the time, and I think that speaks for itself. I think we've gotten too late in the process here to do much different than what we've always done in the past, but I would recommend in the next 8.5 years you start looking at that again to see if you want to test the market. And that is, I think, all I had to say on this contract tonight. As I said, we can talk about it now, and if you want to talk more on at next week's meeting, we're happy to do that.
Councilmember Salmore?
Sorry, I didn't turn off my mic from earlier. So just so we go over, we're going to have an increase, what is suggested right now, as 15% and 7%. But what does it mean? There are inflators for both water sewer services and for garbage trash services, as well as a combined water sewer trash inflator, but they all equal WST. What do we care about the sewer part of it?
That's a good question. I'm going to let Marcy answer that as well. I would just say that we're not in a position of being able to just, spin the dial and pick the inflator that we like. This is part of a negotiation. What we're being offered is the water sewer trash for a lower initial rate. If we want to stick with the one we've got, we really only have the two options, is either the one we have now in the contract or the water sewer trash one. They're not offering to tag this to garbage and trash or water and sewer. They'd rather go with the larger, I don't mean larger in terms of percentage increases, but just the larger database of water sewer trash. I would agree that that would be a better inflator than the one we currently have if you're trying to capture the cost increases in this industry. If you're trying to satisfy people in a labor contract, it would be something entirely different. But I think this is a step up in terms of accuracy on how the industry is going to behave over time. I think it would be worth exploring for the company to do maybe in the future to tie this to just trash and recycling services, but that's not what they're prepared to do now.
Thank you. And so we have the increase because we know other countries aren't taking our garbage, and there's a percentage increase with the new contract. And then we have the inflators. On page 7, it said, should the city prefer to continue to use the CP-W waste management, would adjust the initial price increase to 22% and 7% respectively. Right. So that's a different option because that's throwing in another 7%?
No, there is going to be a 7% increase in '24 in either of those two options. So it's really only the first year that is different. They're looking at the same data that I was showing you. They know how CPIW has behaved over time, and they know how this water sewer trash inflator is likely to behave over time. At least they have a better idea than we do. And they said, if you want the lower inflator, then you got to start with a higher price. And I think that is incumbent upon us to try to sort that out. And as I tried to do that, I couldn't convince myself that it was worth any kind of gamble for such a little payoff. I'd rather our customers see an immediate benefit by getting lower rates in '23 and '24, because anything else is just guessing how the future might go.
I think we do have to do a low rate the first year, especially with all the talk about recession, especially coming at us. There was just a couple quick questions, and I'll go quickly, and I know we're late in the process and understand that it's very late to go out for a bid anywhere else. So it says enroll in auto pay to a city designated charity. What does that mean?
I think that says the first 1,500 people that do anything that's on that list,
They can
open
choose.
up the app and do something, they'll give us $1 for that. So
Okay.
there's $1,500 they would give to the city's designated charity. I haven't even thought about who that might be, and if you have some ideas, I'm sure we'd entertain those, so.
And then the last two questions are relatively easy. Other garbage companies are no longer accepting glass. Are we still accepting glass?
Yes, that's one of the benefits, I think, of this new contract. They're not proposing to drop anything that is in the current contract from the new contract. They make money on some things, they lose money on other things, and they're not proposing any changes in that.
So the one thing I'll close with is that if our citizens learned how to recycle differently or better, would our costs eventually, could we negotiate with our costs going down? Because I know one of the issues that Waste Management is having is they have to sort our recycle, and that's been an issue because they still have that extra cost going in. I talked to somebody who works in Waste Management to ask this question, and they said that was one of the issues that they were having is we still recycle, but recycling isn't as good as it should be, and we were talking about imposing fines, and it was $25 after 2 warnings. So we're not talking about that anymore, right? And so we're not talking about citizens recycling in the manner that they currently do now?
Here's the way I would answer that, and again, I would ask Marcy to jump in if she wants to add something to this, but a part of the service that we would get from Waste Management would be for us to work together to put out accurate information to the public about recycling, to remind them frequently about what is and what isn't acceptable, to leave notes if they've got some technology actually that when they pick that container up and dump it, the camera can record if there's something in there that really wasn't supposed to be in there, and it will trigger a note to go to that address to say, hey, you know, this load was contaminated. We took it, but we probably won't take it again. Or so there is some attempt to continually reinforce good behavior that way. And yeah, I think we should try to get our people to do as good a job as possible. But ultimately, these source-separated recyclables are going to go to a MRF, a materials recovery facility anyway. They're going to be put on a big conveyor belt, and people are going to pick whatever's left in there. We may be 50% better than we were the year before, but there's still going to be stuff in there that they're going to have to take out. Now, the next load may come from some other city that doesn't do as good a job, and they'll have to work a little harder. But I'm not sure that they could really somehow put some math to that and say, hey, you know, you should get a rate decrease of 2% for that. I don't see that as likely. But I think the whole country needs to work hard to get these recyclables cleaned up so that we can have reliable markets. It's obviously an important environmental issue to recover all those materials and get them back into useful products. So I think that's more the motivation than it is any possible decrease in our rates.
And I just wanted to leave on a positive note, especially when waste management's on the line. I have an elderly neighbor that has trouble bringing the trash cans back and forth, and they have gone out of their way to help this neighbor, and I just
Yeah.
so appreciate that. I mean, the whole neighborhood is in awe over it, and they really do appreciate that extra touch. And some of those extra little touches like that makes a huge difference, so.
I
Thank
totally
you.
agree. Marcy, did you want to add anything on that issue of cleaning up our own performance?
I did, thank you, and good evening. Thank you, Councilmember Sonmore, appreciate that comment. It's really great to hear the work that our drivers do and that being appreciated. So thank you. Along with the recycling, the processing part of it, which is of course taking out contamination and making sure we have clean materials. The other side that was impacted by what Phil had talked about, China's, policies and things like that, were the value of recyclables has gone down, and we saw a little bit of recovery in the value of materials, especially cardboard, with people being home and stuff like that during the pandemic. But even just in August and September, it's starting to go down again as far as what the recyclables are worth. So those are the two components of recycling. The processing side, so getting clean materials, getting contamination out, and then what it's worth on the back end. And so we assume all of the risk in the contract of, whether the recycle is doing well or doing poorly. So that's part of the rate piece too. So I wanted to make sure to explain that.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Phil, for the very thorough presentation and review. Just, I guess, a note and then a question. So on the top of page 24, it still references the 4 units of extra trash pickup per year versus 5. So that'll be
Yes.
updated as part of that process?
Yes.
Okay, great. And then wanted to ask about the park pickups. And I don't know if that's a you question or a Jeff question, but notice that it's included for some of the parks, but not all of the parks, and just wanted to make sure that that was intentional. And I guess because I know we've kind of, over time, which parks have had trash receptacles has changed. And so I was
Yeah,
curious.
I don't know that.
Yeah. So I know we put one back at Firefighters Memorial Park, for instance, but that's not referenced here. Is that because our staff is doing that, or is that because we need to get
Here
there?
be fine, probably. So those are staff-related issues. When the trash cans are us, but the dumpsters in the parks are waste management.
Got it. Thank you. That was it.
I might also mention in the town center, when that comes to fruition completely, there'll be a lot of individual containers on the streets to keep the streets cleaner and neater. Those are part of the contract that will be serviced by Waste Management. And they do pick up all the city's solid waste from this building and other buildings. That's part of the contract. So, yeah, those are really nice features. And special events, up to 3 a year, am I right, Marcy? And going to potentially 4 if we can identify what the 4th one
4.
is. Yeah.
No, that's great. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Councilmember Sonmore.
I'm glad you brought that up, because there was an issue this year with one of our events. So
Which one?
our largest one that we had. And so Waste Management is expected to help in that event, in it?
Yeah.
They did? Okay.
Marcy, do you know any details on that? Would that be that National Night Out thing, or was it?
No, it's another one, because it,
Okay.
Yeah, so this year we worked and provided service for Tour de Terrace for the 4th of July event and National Night Out. And those are kind of the 3 that we've done historically. And if the city were to identify a 4th one, it would be covered as well.
So Terrace did get garbage picked up at the carnival site for,
Yeah, I coordinated, I believe, with Ken Courtmanch on the services and delivery. I think they went to the ball fields, the
there was just
containers,
a
if I
big
remember
issue at the
correctly, but I could go
carnival.
through emails.
So I just wanted to make sure, because when I was there, they were overflowing and on the ground, and so I just wanted to make sure, or I am assuming it's a responsibility with the Terrace coordinators and, okay.
So I'm sorry,
And I
we
heard there
provide
was
the
some
containers,
issues.
all of the bins, that you can move around. But we don't have staff at the events
Oh, so you don't have
to
staff,
keep them, so-
you just pick up?
No.
That's what I need to know.
We
Thank
just
you.
provide
Drop
the
off empties,
containers
pick up full
and
ones.
the disposal.
Thank you.
Councilmember Woodard?
Thank you, Mayor. From an educating our residents perspective and this new contract, freeze frame that for a second. A year or two ago, when we started this conversation, or at least when I first met you, Maricela, we were talking about no longer taking certain recyclables, and clamshells come to mind because I'd never heard the term before. That's the only reason why it sticks out. But there was a whole list of like, oh, we won't do this, we won't do that. And it was tied to China's decision to not take. Does that come into play here? I haven't quite heard that portion of the contract. Are there actual, you're no longer taking that we need to be aware of now before we sign this so we can make sure we're educating our residents?
The list is part of the draft contract. I can compare it to the current one to identify anything specifically that's changed. But I don't believe clamshells were on there
Yeah, I don't
specifically, but
think so. I'm pretty sure you wouldn't be taking those in the curbside recyclable pickup. They do, I know they do sponsor, I've done them before, styrofoam in general, sometimes events, they'll put on a special event and they'll come take that and you announce it in advance. It's a one-day only thing, and anybody, usually right after Christmas when everybody's got a pile of styrofoam in the garage, have them come down and bring it, and we can get rid of it that way. But it's so lightweight and it takes up so much room, it's a real bear to try to work into a curbside pickup.
But it's so I'm clear, you said you're going to go ahead and do a comparison to see what's on the list now, what's on the list on the new contract, just so we're clear, because that's not how I remember it, and that's not making it real. But I do want to make sure if we need to start telling people, don't put that in there, because I remember telling people, don't put certain things in there. But maybe I'm alone. Wouldn't be the first time.
Yep. And so Phil, I can get you that information first thing in the morning. And also Councilmember Woodard, we have our annual service guide will be ready to update as soon as we finalize this. And so that's going to go out to residents January, which will include the 5 coupons as well. But so we'll have the guide and those coupons going out in pretty short order after we finalize this, if we get there.
Real quick here. Stephen Clifton, for the record, Acting City Manager. If you look at page 6061 of the contract, Exhibit C, clamshells is referenced as being precluded or excluded from being picked up in the right-hand column, bottom page of 61. So that's where I see a reference there.
Well, they're also more often than not contaminated with food, which is another reason. But
So I have a question for Marcel. The coupons, they don't arrive immediately on January 1st. So between January 1st and when the coupons arrive, can we use the ones from the year before?
Yes.
Good, thank you. I'm sure that's the question a lot of people have out there because, You know, I've only used one of my coupons so far this year.
Yeah, and we can also work on the timing of that so that folks maybe get them in December. If you think that would be better, if they get them before the year starts, we can work on that timing. That's no problem.
might
But
wanna-
yeah,
yeah.
those coupons will be good still in January, and I'll make sure that our operations team knows that.
Thank you. Councilmember Murray, did you have your? Oh. Mayor Pro Tem Wall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On that note, will that be included in the app or online feature? Because, I mean, you know, I got my 5 certificates and I have no idea where they are. Because, you know, that was last January, and I try and unload as much paperwork as I can because I have too much. So for all those residents that have no idea where their 5 certificates are, is there a way to find that or call you to, or be able to, or will that be included in the app feature, for instance, that I can use it so I can use it electronically or somehow track it rather than having to keep 5 certificates throughout the year?
The app feature is a great suggestion. I can take that to my digital team and see if that's a possibility. We also, when we order those, we send additional coupons to City Hall so that you have them on hand as well. And typically folks that have lost theirs can go and pick them up, as my understanding, as replacements.
Great, thank you. And so for those people that probably don't know that the city has those, I guess that's something that we need to educate people about, or is that something that you will include in, the guidebook, or I guess where I'm going with this is, until you add it to the app, for instance, what do I do in November when I have an extra bag and I have no idea where my certificate is? Can I call you?
Yeah, so you can call, and our agents know that the additional coupons are at City Hall for replacements. So we refer customers there when they call us and tell us they've lost them.
Okay, great, thank you.
Councilmember Murray?
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. I'm sorry, everybody's questions are prompting other questions. I guess I'm curious if when we go out with that information to let residents know that there's going to be a cost increase in January, can we also pair that with information about the size of cans that are available and the cost associated with each of those? I think that would be a helpful option for folks who perhaps aren't using all of the capacity of their current service, to know that if cost is a factor that they are looking at, that they have the option to potentially get a smaller trash can that might be better reflective of their needs and cut those costs some.
Yeah, we can do that.
Stefan? Oh, I'm sorry.
Council, based on the questioning I'm hearing tonight, I think this would be a great opportunity to work with Ricky, and maybe in the January city happenings, we could actually put an article about the rate increase, the coupons, and the garbage can sizes as well. And we can work with Waste Management maybe to tailor that article so that our citizens can actually see that in the newsletter that goes out.
There's even a service option, Marcy, correct? That if you are really one of those extreme reusers and recyclers and really passionate about it, you can actually get a small container picked up once a month, which is, that's not a linear reduction in the cost, but it's certainly a significant reduction in the cost. What's that?
Very minimal.
Yeah, it's
But
very,
it was
very small.
enough for me. I'll go ahead,
Can I
Councilmember
just tag
Sonmore,
on
and
to
then we'll-
educating the public? And I was trying to pull up the contract real fast, and I can't remember, but educating them, because I know our city, you have to have garbage, and I don't know if there's any exceptions, but it's real important for people to understand that they really can't get out of the garbage service, and that's not through us, that's through Waste Management. And, I know they like to call the city on that, but a lot of times they need to contact Waste Management, or they just need to see the rules kind of spelled out in the newsletter for them.
I'll tell you, I was very impressed when I saw that Mountlake Terrace had done that. You're not the only ones that demand that a level of service be paid for by every home in town. I mean, I think that's the thing to do in a modern urban area, is to make sure people have access to those services. It really keeps your city a lot cleaner, your alleys a lot cleaner, backyards a lot cleaner, if they have an option. And Edmonds, where I spent a lot of time, they still have not done that. And I think it shows in parts of Edmonds too. So that was a really nice thing to hear when I came here, was that you have mandatory service. And I also thought and Marcy might want to comment on it, that's kind of unique, not completely unique, but to have all three provided with, one, you only pay for trash. And you get every other week as much as you want, really, of residential recycling and organics collection, as long as you can get it into a 96-gallon can, which usually isn't too hard. I mean, that's a high level of service. I think it speaks well for Mountlake Terrace. It expresses, I would think, a strong desire to keep the city clean and neat, and I'm very impressed.
Go ahead.
I have to ask, because our citizens will be asking, because they used to love it. Did we calculate the price of what it would have cost if we would have had that one-day cleanup where you put out whatever? I know that's very popular in other cities, but I know we'll be asked about that. And so I was just wondering, did we calculate that out? Would it have gone up significantly, or how much would have gone up?
I'm going to have to punt that to Marcy, I think. I don't know. Did you have that at any point in the past in these contracts? Just a generalized curbside pickup of bulky waste, for example, once a year, twice a year, something?
We did not. That did not come up in discussion as something as a program to include. So I don't know what that would look like or what it would cost. We do have that in different cities in different ways. There's the curbside model, there's the drop-off style event. So we could look at adding that. I don't know what the adjustment to the rates would be for that, though.
If you look at the cost to get rid of an appliance nowadays, or even mattresses and other bulky things, those are pretty big numbers. I can remember years ago, a long time ago, it's because I'm old, in Spokane, when, like I said, we controlled all of those services. We did them ourselves. Didn't have to ask somebody to give you a price. We just went out and did it. We did that quite a bit. Once or twice a year, in select neighborhoods, we'd just tell them, okay, we'll come pick up anything you set out on the curb, as long as it's not a car. I think that was very much appreciated. I don't see that model working anymore.
We got our coupons in place of that.
Yeah, trying to replace that, yeah.
But you can't put out a lawn chair, with a coupon. Don't you have a limit on what they pick up with a coupon?
5 minutes with a hacksaw, you could probably put it somewhere in a container, I would think.
I'm not touching one of those.
Councilmember Woodard?
Who knew we had an hour of trash talk? Going back to the interim city manager's offer to do a newsletter article, can you clarify? I love that we have 5 coupons, because at the end of the year, they end up being needed. Can you clarify whether or not you can use your neighbors' coupons? Because I know that has come up quite a bit, and you'll see a little bit of traffic over the internet. Who's got a coupon? I got a coupon. But what I don't want to see happen is us at least acknowledging that's either okay or not okay, and then people getting bills and then coming to us to tell us, well, how did you let us down? So can you just clarify whether or not you keep track of the 5, or whether or not you get to know your neighbor and you can have 6, if you will?
We, on the waste management side, do not track those coupons as far as assigning them to a specific address.
Go ahead. Last one. So Well, there's a two-part. So with those, sorry, with those bags, what can you use for? Because I've seen people put out like a small little mini refrigerator and they put the coupon to it. And I didn't think that they could do that. Could you just remind us what the coupon can be used for?
It should just be extra trash. I wouldn't think it would include any kind of appliances or anything like that.
We're
It should just be extra trash.
we're coming upon leaves falling down all over the place. And I have an extra garbage can, so I couldn't fill up that extra garbage can and put a tag on it, could I?
Yes,
Oh, okay, perfect.
32 gallons, right? I don't know how big your can is, but generally an extra is considered 32 gallons.
Perfect.
I thought I
And
saw something in the contract that said if you don't have an extra garbage can just sitting around in your garage, that, like a cardboard box that was 3 by 3, I think, give or take, that size would be fine too, or trash bag, a hefty bag, or something that's, tied up, not likely to spill or strew its contents into the wind is preferred.
Yes.
But you had mentioned how Edmonds, maybe they have some other trash laying around. We have the threat of the recession, we have the threat of the waste management, or the waste management going up, but then also we had somebody in about our, sorry, I just always want to call it the dump. I'm sorry, that's what we usually, the disposal area, and that's going up, and I know the chief's here. Do you think we'll see a bigger increase of dumping? And do they get fines if they're caught?
Well, let's see. I think, Marcy, you told me, I otherwise wouldn't have known this, but I think Snohomish County hasn't raised their tipping fee at their transfer stations. It's $105 a ton, although not everybody takes a ton in. And so there's, if you go in with a small vehicle, it's not inexpensive, even just with a station wagon. If you go in with that, that's just, but it is $105 per ton if they do weigh you in and out. And that hasn't changed for, what, a decade? And I haven't heard
Yeah,
anything
about
about it
that.
changing. Okay, I haven't heard that, but Marcy, have you heard that it's going up? I would think you guys would be one of the first to know.
You mean at the transfer station?
I'm sorry, I
At the
didn't,
transfer station.
I couldn't
thought
hear
it was
that
$20 minimum.
question.
It may be, that may be changing, the minimum amount per vehicle. And I can understand why they might want to do that on busy days, but on the tonnage price, I don't think has changed for a decade, and I haven't heard anything to the contrary that it was going to change, but.
Hey, Phil, could you repeat the question? The microphone wasn't on.
I'm sorry.
So Marcy couldn't hear the question, not yours, council members.
I think the question was, I think Councilmember Sonmore said that she had heard that there were going to be some changes in rates at the transfer station, and then I just responded on the general tipping fee. I didn't think that was going up. The mayor had said that she thought she saw the minimum cost to take anything to the transfer station. There was going to be a minimum, and that minimum may be increasing. I don't know about that. Can we get some information on that, Marcy, or I can call
Sure, I
Snohomish
can reach
County.
out to Snohomish County.
Okay, we'll find out. We'll get a hold of Snohomish County and find out what. No, I'd kind of like to. I'm curious now.
Can you speak into the microphone, please?
I was just wondering, do people get fined when they just dump garbage?
Oh, yeah.
But, well, if you catch them, so that was all, but we don't need to go into more.
I will say the legal standard on that is pretty high. We had a really active program in Spokane trying to catch illegal dumpers. And even though you can go out and find the pile of trash, find 7 receipts in it with their name on it, and an old tax return with their name on it or whatever, and you go to the judge and say, this is prima facie evidence that this person dumped that trash in that spot, they go, oh, no, no. Because they will just stand there and say, no, you know what? I paid a guy $5 to clean out my garage. He must have done it. And it's pretty hard to get over that bar, but I think it's worth trying, of course. If you see somebody doing it, take a picture or a phone. Everybody's got a phone nowadays. Just, yeah.
Anyone else? I don't see any more hands coming up.
Okay.
Oh, city manager?
So council, if there's no more questions, I have one question, and that is October 17th, as Phil mentioned earlier, we do have further review of the proposed 10-year waste management agreement if necessary. So the question for the council is whether or not you want this just to go straight to the November 7th hearing.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Great. So I just want to thank Phil for his presentation. I think, as you could see by the presentation tonight, you can understand why my answer was yes when he offered to take over the review of the contract. Initially, it was Jeff, myself, Eric, and Ken, and we had a few exchanges with Waste Management, but Phil offered to take it over and review it further, and he really dug deep into the CPI issue, which I greatly appreciated because it helped me better understand the eventual outcome 10 years down. So,
Thank you so much, Phil. All right, well, so next on our agenda is the update on the Transit Connection Corridor Project.
Well, good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. So this presentation will not be about garbage or trash, but I also am thankful that Phil did that presentation. It's a little complicated when it comes to the CPI for sure. So tonight I'm here to update the council on this project, or we're calling it for short, the TCCP. So hopefully I won't say that tonight, but I tend to. It's the Transit Connection Corridor Project. So we started this project a number of years ago, and I'll go through a few different presentation topics. There is some background information, some of the design information to date, and then next steps and some discussion by council. So as mentioned, we began doing some design work at the pedestrian plaza adjacent to the light rail station off of 236 and I-5, the corner there, and what is now known as Van Ryn Boulevard. So in 2018, though, we were calling it the Gateway Plaza and Gateway Boulevard. So if I say that, I should not as well. The plaza itself is yet unnamed, and we'll go through a process eventually that will come back to council for that with public input as well. So this map shows the general orientation of the project and some of the adjacent streets, just to orient people that are watching this online as well as the council. In green, you'll see Veterans Memorial Park. And then some of the blues around it are to the southwest of Veterans Memorial Park is the Sound Transit Light Rail Station. So you have the surface parking lot as well as the parking garage there. And then just south of that, you have 236. And then as well, you have Gateway Plaza and Boulevard. And then the Civic Campus is just north of Veterans Memorial Park. And then the town center area to the east, or actually all around it really now with some of the rezoning. So it's really, this project is split into two elements. You have the trails within the park, and then you also have the Gateway Plaza. So this main trail, there's 3 different connections. The main trail in red shown here is part of this project. This will take you from, essentially from the light rail station, or from where it's not all the way to 236. That's a different little section that we're working on separately that this project doesn't address. But it's the main trail from the inside the confines of the park itself in the southwest corner. And it takes you all the way to 58th, shown in red. And that will be lit asphalt pathway. There will also be a gravel connector trail that's shown here in brown. That's really just the existing pathway location right now, the existing dirt/gravel pathway that's there. But that will be an improved gravel connector trail. And then the campus connector trail, which will take you north to the Civic Campus, and it'll terminate just south of the police station. You can see kind of a little winding pathway to get up to it because it's a little bit of a climb up there. And that will be asphalt lit as well. And then the North Connector Trail that will take you from that Civic Campus over to 60th Avenue West, and that will be 6-foot wide asphalt with lighting. Another piece to the project will include a footbridge and some interpretive signage on that bridge. So it will be meant for pedestrians, the bridge itself, but it will be strong enough to carry vehicles across. So maintenance vehicles will be able to approach from either direction that way, or travel all the way through, as well as police vehicles when they're trying to drive through and do some patrol work. And then each location entry point will have wayfinding signs. So all of these elements are included as part of our contract with OTAC that we're doing design work right now. So just to highlight, if you remember, we went through, as part of the Veterans Park Master Plan, some guiding policies. And these are some of the elements that we wanted to include as part of the plan and what some of the things that it should accomplish. And I highlighted in red 2 elements that will be addressed in this project that we're going to be designing and building next year. Designing now and building next summer. So the primary connector trails, including the 3 different elements that I showed you just now, the 3 main lit asphalt pathways, and then vegetation management plan. The basis of it will be formed because we're doing a very detailed tree survey right now. We just completed that survey, and they measured and marked every single tree within the park. So we have a very good idea of what's where, and that'll help. It'll help us with the trail locations, as well as taking a look at a complete vegetation management plan. So that will be a very important part to this project. So now the light rail pedestrian plaza. So the north on this image is facing to the right of the screen. So now we're looking west, essentially. West is to the top of the screen. And you can see the Gateway Plaza site, as it's labeled, from 2019 here, 2018 actually. And the light rail line is kind of going from east to west here. It looks like on the screen. It's really going north-south, but it's coming across your screen. And you can see the surface parking lot. And this was just an initial image when we were first doing some design work, and Sound Transit helped with this. And we took this to some of our initial planning meetings to talk about master planning of that site. So this was the design that came out of that, and this is what we came up with when we're about at the 90-95% part of the project in 2019. So that original plan included this 2,000 square foot developed area that you'll see, and then also some plantings and a cutoff trail. So after Sound Transit did some more work, and we did some more analysis after this planning effort was undertaken, we found that that area was not going to be doable as part of our project. And there's many reasons, but the gist of it is that the fill calculations ended up escalating the price for the city significantly. We were going to have to pay for a lot of fill, and we were also going to have to pay for all of those plants that were going to go in there. So staff took the measure to look at that design plan and revise it, and then also take a look at what our costs could be if we removed all those pieces that I show in red here, which is really just the plantings and the cutoff trail. We still have a ramped pathway through the Gateway Plaza. That's kind of one of the main elements to the plaza itself, but it reduces our costs. Well, we won't have to acquire that property because it's owned by partially WashDOT and partially by Sierra. But there will be less fill. We don't have to pay for the plantings and then also the construction work. But Sound Transit will still be required. They still are required to plant basically what our planting plan would have been there. They're going to have to turn around and do anyway. So then they're required to do all that fill work. So basically, we just offloaded that cost from the city to Sound Transit, which was going to be their responsibility either way as part of light rail. So the design still includes everything you see on this map that's outside of that red area now. But it includes a community tree in the center, a little bit off center, you can see. Concrete benches in the middle. It has a lit entry sign that you should be able to see from light rail. And in the middle of the plaza, within those concrete benches, there's an option for a feature. Now, you'll see some images when I go forward where we've thought of a few different ideas, and one of them was a water feature that people commented on they really liked there. And another one was just having some artwork there and not knowing what it is, but something that's more of a placemaking style piece of artwork that you could see from light rail from quite a ways away, probably as you approach the city. So this is just the original plans. I threw in a bunch of imagery so you can remember where we were in 2019. This was our planting plan that we came up with for that area outside of the plaza that Sound Transit will now undertake. And then these were some of the ideas that they came out with, and that there's a few different water feature, a cubed fountain concept, a terraced fountain concept, and then a spiral. And then some different images from that. You can see what the sign would look like as you're walking up 236 going east. You can see the Gateway Plaza sign and that potential water feature. Some more imagery from that plan itself where you can see the bench option, what one of those benches looks like, and you string a bunch of them together all the way around, and that becomes kind of that centerpiece of the plaza. And then some of the curved benches also was another option at the time, showing what our streetlight fixture looks like in tandem with these different elements. So the project costs these are estimates at this time, since we have not done full design of the trails. We're at a very beginning point for that, for the trails within the park. And the pedestrian plaza, we're going to have to do some revamping of those costs based on the discussion we have tonight. But right now, we're looking at a $1.5 million piece for the plaza and 3.577-ish for the trails. And our funding sources are beneath that. We right now have commitments of $2.5 million from Sound Transit, $2 million from the federal highway, which was part of the community programs from Representative Larson, the federal program, and then a CMAQ PSRC grant for $577,581. So really what I wanted to talk about after refreshing those things with you is to talk about this water feature or art concept. And both were brought up at various times. And it seemed like a lot of people liked both at various times, but there's been some rethinking on a water feature versus that. And really some of it is based on our experiences with City Hall's water feature, which we love, and it's a great feature itself. And it's just very expensive to not only to build, but to maintain as well. And a water feature such as we saw in some of those imageries are probably, it's going to be at least $500,000, if not more. And then the ongoing maintenance costs of it are pretty expensive to maintain that. And some other things we found after doing some research is that area in general, our landscape architect has found the location to not be very, very conducive to water cascading down due to kind of its wide open nature and the wind blowing through. If you could imagine walking through the plaza and having the water blow off the top into your face or something of that nature, it's a little bit of a concern to make it not very user friendly. Another pro about the artwork in general is just there's really a lack of outdoor public art within the city. We have a few pieces, and they're all 1% pieces, but they're all, basically almost all of them are located here at the Civic Campus. So to have something at a welcoming point, piece of art, was very attractive to both RPAC and the Arts Commission. So we reviewed this question with both of them to get input, and both RPAC, the Recreation Parks Advisory Commission, and the Arts Commission overwhelmingly recommended the art. There were a lot of ideas thrown out for both groups, but definitely they both liked the art idea. Excuse me. So what I'm going to ask after I get through these next steps is just some discussion and get feedback from council to see which direction that you would like us to take this. So depending on how that goes, excuse me, if there was an art piece involved, then I would go back to the Arts Commission this month, which is next Tuesday, and bring to them the call for artists that outline that I've prepared, and talk to them about what they would like to see that outline look like and how we would like to frame that request or call for artists if that was the decision. Or if the decision is to go with a water feature, we need to probably engage with somebody to design that piece separately. Right now, the actual scale that we're working with timeline-wise is early November. I wrote November 1st here. I don't know if that's going to be it, but early November, within the first week or two, we're talking about doing a virtual open house. And so we'll have a lot of data on those trails. We'll be able to show some conceptuals and more detail based on the topography and the trees, and get feedback from people. Probably the first one will be more of a presentation than an actual feedback piece, but try to reintroduce people to these topics since it's been, for everybody, even council, it's been 3 years since we've talked about this, really. So just trying to remind everybody where we were for the Gateway Plaza. I know Veterans is newer. The Veterans Park Trail was only 9-10 months ago. But have that virtual open house, and then we're going to be at 30% design by November. And then in January, we'll have a second, that's not January 2nd, but a second public meeting. And that one would be probably in person. So that one could be in person and potentially here in this room. And just really bounce off ideas and get feedback from the public of what they like and don't like. And then in January, we would be able to follow up with that information on a 60% design. And then on March or April-ish, we would do a third public meeting, and that one could be either in person or virtual. Not sure yet on how that would pan out. But the idea is to be able to go to bid, hopefully in May, and then be ready for construction in the summer. So our Sound Transit grants have a deadline of revenue service to complete the projects. So the $2.5 million that we will have from them will need to be expended by then and be open to the public. So revenue service has been pushed back, I believe, into mid-24, I believe. I think that's the new timeline we're looking at. It was mid-23. So we have a little more time than we thought. But we still would like to move forward with design and get this thing going. So I could take some questions from council, but I definitely would like to try to get some direction, see which way everybody would like to go.
Anyone? Okay, Councilmember Ricardo and then Woodward.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Jeff, for bringing this forward to us again and kind of re-educating us on where we've been and where we are. I'd be in favor of going with the artwork idea instead of a water feature, just knowing the whole cost and maintenance and keeping those things up and running and clean and beautiful and pretty. I also look at it, it also gives us a chance to, art would be more affordable, not only initially, but as well as just maintaining it and keeping it presentable. And because I look at this plaza like, this is kind of like the statement for Mountlake Terrace. You've arrived, we are here. So, you know, the money we could save by doing art versus a water feature could then be put back into this plaza to make it more of a real statement piece of, you're in Mountlake Terrace now, and this is what the community is and what it's about, and how you can be connected through the whole trail system that'll take you from here to Veterans Park to downtown to our city hall. So I would be a proponent for art over water feature.
Councilmember Woodard?
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to say thank you for including that Ivy League photo at the end there. I was going to ask you to update the previous ones as well, because there's so much great work that's been done. That ivy climbing up those trees is dead. On that note, Ivy League meets on the 22nd. Come on out, everybody. Throw a shovel around or something. That said, I too agree with Councilmember McCardle to go in the direction of artwork instead of the water feature. I thought we actually did put that to rest already as a discussion point. And I also, on that note, want to know, I had recommended the idea of having a map of the city with the parks outlined. How do I get that to get some legs? Because I'm just curious whether or not, when you say you haven't had necessarily too many ideas, or maybe had too many ideas, I'm not sure which one it is, but from a statement perspective, that just feels deep in my heart like the direction to go.
Yeah, I mean, would you clarify what you mean by a map? Do you mean, are you talking about like the compass star that you, I know you've mentioned that before, or do you mean like a wayfinding?
So I envision coming off that platform, looking down, and the floor itself perhaps being one giant map that's smaller. So we're 4 square miles, so I don't think it'd be too hard to fit all of Mountlake Terrace in there and literally have where it is. So when someone comes off that, they know Ballinger Lake is behind them. They know Veterans Park's in front of them. They also know there's these other great parks all around our city. So
Map of the city with green.
yes. Yeah, so like an outline of our city, but, you know, bigger than life. Like kids could come in and make, oh, I'm standing here in this one. You're over, you know, like actually kind of an interactive approach to it. So not just a
An
picture of a
artwork that
map.
features all that.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor.
Anyone else? Councilmember Murray?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Jeff, for coming back and presenting to us again. Excited to see this continue to develop and move forward. I will say that I would personally strongly prefer a water feature, and I hear your feedback. I think we would have to have, I think to Councilmember McCardle's point, this very much feels like an entry to our community. And I guess it's hard to conceptualize without some examples of art, choosing that direction versus some things that we can actually see as part of this. I will say I know that our water feature out there has been, you know, a lot of work, and I also think it is something that draws our community in. And every time I come by, I see people, you know, sitting by it, playing in it. You know, I think it has been, despite some of the challenges in getting to a place, you know, where we are now, like, it has been worthwhile, and I think it is a shining example of kind of what we can do as a community. So very open to the idea of exploring artwork. I would love to be able to see maybe some options for art and some options for water features and what that would look like in terms of cost and maintenance and whatnot. But I guess that would be my feedback, is that I still think water is probably my preference, but I could absolutely be wowed with an incredible art piece if we went out and got some proposals around that. Thank you.
Councilmember Salmore?
You talked about the overall plan. Would the new 57th Street be added into that plan as additional ways to get to it? I know in your example on number 3 you show, but we haven't added in that new street.
Yeah, I mean, it's not part of this project itself, but I mean, I think it's part of the city's vision, right, to have a 57th Street. And so, I mean, I think that's going to help people get around to get to these locations.
Yeah, more sidewalks,
Absolutely.
I was thinking in, you know, different areas. But the one thing I would say, artwork, unfortunately, I've been at Floral Hills a couple of times this year, and I was talking to them about their fountain, and their fountain has burst twice, and they got it fixed the first time, and they're not even sure when they're going to even fix the second time because the pipes freeze and you have to dig out all the cement. And I mean, I got a whole list of different things that were talked about just that one fountain. And so that was my concern. And when you said people would get wet walking by, that would be extremely annoying if you were on your way to work. So thank you for pointing that one out.
Councilmember Ryan?
I'd weigh in also for the artwork.
Did you want to, Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with Councilmember Murray that, I agree, first of all, with Councilmember McCardle, this is a statement location. But I agree with Councilmember Murray that as a statement, it's Mountlake Terrace, right? We're about water, and water features are really well liked. And I mean, some of you may know I travel a lot. And the places that attract people are usually water features. I mean, you think about great cities. We want to be a destination city. We want to be a place that people are attracted to and think about. I mean, think about the cities. Think about, well, let's just go back to Vancouver, where we just had a conference, and the park that the waterfront park that they have there, beautiful water feature. What attracts people there? There is a splash pond. I mean, you know what I love? I like the idea of this map, with this interactive map with a water feature, with the lake. We have a Lake Ballinger. Why don't we do a splash pond with the lake with this? So can't we combine the art? I mean, I love art too. I mean, a nice art piece with a water feature would be fantastic, I think. Art, however, also scares me depending on what it is. Have any of you been down through, I guess it's Auburn, I think, and seen one of their big feature art piece in one of their parks is a crow eating fries. I mean, this thing is 20 feet tall.
I think that's wonderful.
But that's also, art is subjective too. Everybody has their, some people love some things and other people maybe not so much, a little bit scary. And so when we talk about a statement piece, I mean, I agree with Councilmember Murray also. I'd like to see examples. I mean, if we have an amazing art piece that we can all get excited about that is not a crow eating fries, for instance, then fabulous. I mean, let's do that. But I'd love to see more art in all of our parks. I mean, let's maybe look at adding some art pieces in all of our parks. But still, I think for a statement for Mountlake Terrace people getting off, I'm nervous about the water splashing. I agree we need to be careful about how we do it and what we do. But I do think that if we really want to make a statement, what people really like is water.
Go ahead.
I just want to follow up. I don't want to be calling out something, but didn't you say that was $500,000 and the city would have to pay for that? So I know our budget's coming out, and the $500,000 would all come from the city, or are there other sources if there was a water feature that was announced? And how much would we do for dedicate to an art piece?
It's a good question. That's something I left out. So the actual water feature, it's a total estimate, right? Because we don't know what it's even going to be. But I know this piece out here was over $300,000. It's just that size. I mean, if we're talking about a statement piece of art or a statement water feature, it's going to be significant. You need a recirculating pump. You need multiple pumps, which takes chlorinated water, which the hard part about all that is you need to pH test it every day, because if people walk into it, it's a health standard. Same thing that we do for this one every day. So it's a staff time issue. It doesn't mean that's not possible. It's just another thing to think about. The dollars, the $500,000, right now, the way I would envision it is it would come out of the project costs that we have right now, so it would reduce what we would be able to do in other areas, unless we came up with additional money. So, I mean, but like I said, we don't really know. We're still just digging into the project right now. So we might end up having more money than we think and able to do something more. But for the artwork, the acting city manager and I discussed this, interim city manager and I have discussed this over course of a couple months, just art in general and placemaking, and he has quite a few examples that he's seen. And one of them I would mention is that Five Corners art piece in Edmonds. That's a really nice piece of, if you haven't seen it or you've driven through it, you must have seen it. It's in the middle of the roundabout there. But I think that's something large, and even something, I think there's a couple ideas the commissioners had of something being kinetic. You know, if there's artwork that's moving, that really draws the eye, and something that is reflective in ways, things like that, that really would attract people to look at it and see what it is. There's a lot of different ideas and a lot of talented artists that could come up with something really attractive. But, you know, just brainstorming, we were thinking like a $100,000 piece of art there. So that would be very significant, considering these two pieces were total.
The flowers.
Yeah.
I've grown to love those flowers. Those are beautiful out there.
So I would like to see a large art feature, because I know what the water feature problems may be, and what I would like to see is a really large statement art feature that everyone from the light rail can see, and they go, oh, we're in Mountlake Terrace. And it could be something as, you know, we're in a country where we have a lot of, started with the Native Americans, and I haven't seen anything close to a totem pole type feature in the North End here. If there is one, you might point it out to me. Or steel salmons and so forth. That could be a large piece of artwork. It could have water coming through it, but it's still going to freeze in the winter. So that's my 2 cents. I just really would like to see a large statement art piece that, I love the one in Linwood, the heart that is lit, and I'm thinking maybe we can have something that's lit, because I think electricity would be okay. It's not going to freeze in the winter. But anyways, it's, and that you can see from the light rail at night, if it's a sculpture that's lit. Anyone else? Go ahead, Councilmember Woodard.
I was done with the art. I hope you have enough direction there. I just wanted to make sure we doubled back and say, I really like the trails crossing the street, especially the lit part, having used that trail a lot and had to use my phone and not die. That's amazing to think that that's going to be lit. That said, our chief is still here. I'd love to be, I guess, informed about any concerns you or your colleagues may have about having that trail, if there are any, just because I recognize that that's also going to create congregation spaces at night that currently don't exist, or if they do, they're not large, is what I would say probably. So I don't need that answer today. Maybe that's a coffee with the city conversation, but just kind of recognizing that we're creating new access that's going to be awesome, but may also not be so awesome. So just kind of putting that out there. But I do love what you presented to us.
Yeah, I think part of the design is that the crime prevention through environmental design technique that we discussed before, the CEPTED, is just more people you drive through there, the less undesirable activities you're going to have, and especially when there's low-level path lighting, you know, you're going to, and if it's drawn a little further away from the path too, so you can see a little ways away from the trail itself, those kinds of things improve safety and perception, I think, of safety. And so that improved trail, especially with an improved bridge, it's really going to help police to be able to go through there often. And I don't know, I think you're planning on some kind of electric bike thing you got going too, right? So, yeah, so I'd let him speak to that, but I think it's only going to improve the situation.
All right, I don't see any other hands going up. Did we give you a,
It sounds like most have said they want art, and if we can incorporate some water, if we have money, then we should look into that too. Is that what I'm hearing? My plan then is to do a call for artists next week. And then we will know as we go through design how much money we have, and we can take a look at that again if there is a lot of money left. It won't be the last time you hear from me. I'll be coming back.
Or me.
Yeah.
Councilmember Murray?
Thank you, Mayor. Can we add that we are interested in water-related, pieces of art as part of that call, maybe to spark those who do that sort of work?
Absolutely.
That would be great.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff.
I think we're done. Thank you. Okay, so next on our agenda is the review of Amendment 1 to Professional Services Agreement for Interim Public Works Director Phil Williams.
Good evening, council members. For the record, Stephen Clifton, acting city manager. This one should be very quick, but the city manager is authorized to expend up to $40,000 for agreements or contracts. Above that amount requires city council authorization. So we've already entered into an employment agreement with Phil Williams, and I did that with that authorization. And so this is simply presenting to you amendment number 1 to exceed that amount by $75,000. And so this can be approved by placing this on the consent agenda October 17th.
Is everyone okay with that? Go ahead.
Although he came in trash talking today, I absolutely agree with that. Just had to say that on record.
Is that a yes or you want to talk?
Oh, we have our, I want to say Mr. Phil, but Phil Williams here with us today, and it's always good to point out and show our appreciation. So I just wanted to thank you for taking the time to join our city, and we appreciate your hard work. So thank you for being here.
So did you want to have a consensus tonight to put onto the calendar, I guess? It looks like it's everybody. Okay. So, city manager, do you have your? All right, so the answer is yes. Unanimous. Next is public comment. Do we have any public comments? Did anyone sign up, or is anyone in the audience?
No one has signed up in person. And if there's anyone in the virtual audience or online audience that would like to speak, please use the hand raise tool. Going once, going twice. No one wants to speak. That's the end of public comment.
All right, thank you. Next is council comments. Does anyone have any council comments? Water. I have a few. If the DEIC is trying to get the city council members to join them for presentations, and I know that we had a few today. I thought that maybe we can reply. I don't know if we're allowed to, but if we could reply all, we know that it was covered. And then, so we had one presentation this week and hopefully two. I've only saw one photo, 3. So that's good, because there were only 4, right? Or 6. So I'll probably be doing one pretty soon. Okay. The Velorum cottages are done. Can I talk about that now or is it later? Okay. And the builder would like to invite the council to come and take a look at them. And I already saw them and they're gorgeous. And can you hear? Okay. The Velorum cottages are done, and the builder would like to invite the council to take a look at them and see what the cottages look like. And I know that Stefan sent some time that the staff can go, but I'm just and they're all in the middle of the day. And so I don't know what the best time during the day would be so that most of the council members can make it. Because I think that maybe after 4 o'clock, but if it's after 5 o'clock, the staff is already off. So just let us know if you want to see the cottages, what the tour with the builder, and then we can all go together and he can explain it all to us one time. Okay? And then, and so every once in a while, do I mention this here or later? Every once in a while, when we send out questions that we need an answer, hopefully you can just answer yes or no every once in a while, because sometimes we're under a deadline and we need to know a few things. And so I can call each one of you directly and leave a message, but there's been a couple of times lately that we didn't get something done because we didn't hear. So just wanted to just let you know. You're all here right now, so you all can hear me at once. Okay. Anyone else?
Go
ahead.
On that note, real quick, on that note, I think it would be helpful for the city manager, whoever's sending it out, to have a kind of a clear ask and a clear deadline of when you need a response by. And I know we've talked about that, and you're starting to do that, but I think that's one of the challenges. One of the challenges is just, we get so many emails, and whether we even see it in a timely manner is another question. So if there may need to be additional follow-up anyway, but when there is a clear deadline, just if we can have a clear ask and a response date of when you need to know by, so that we can try and get back to you as quickly as possible.
Go ahead, Councilmember Summer.
We've always had different communication paths, and in the past few years, it's been a lot different. And so we're not used to replying by email a lot, where it was all verbal in the past, and we'd talk about it at a meeting. And so maybe we've got to re-educate ourselves on getting back. But in the title, it's really nice, like you were just saying, action needed, or just something that we always know, or anything from Stefan, because we get a ton of emails and you're sorting through which one, and then you get down to the bottom and you're like, oh, that's probably it. And then you realize the next day you see another one come in or something. But we were so used to doing it so differently for so long, so it's hard to get back into that change again.
Well, you can just probably just reply, not reply all, but reply to the city manager, Stefan. And go ahead, Councilmember Woodard.
And to further complicate and add another medium in there, I haven't had a text message in quite some time, so I would also put that out there. Like, that's a much easier way to reach, I would at least say, some of us. I see some head shaking, but again, that's what I'm saying, just further complicating it. But even if it just said, hey, check your email, because I actually do my email about every 3 days, just because it's, mostly AWC and other people telling me how I could win the lottery, so it's like, I look for us, but if there was an immediate need, that text message would work for me.
So that one I'm going to look at Stefan, because some people like doing those and some don't. And so I don't want to put you on the hook, but I'm putting you on the hook.
Go ahead.
I have some ideas based on what I've heard tonight. I could definitely put something within the subject line saying majority needed by certain date and then follow that with the actual subject. So I could do that. There are ways in Outlook where you can click on high priority and then it tags the email as high priority. We could text the council, say, look at your email, action required or majority required. For the public, we do make sure we blind copy the city council when we send emails so they can't communicate with one another. So it's really only communication between me and the city council member. So just to let the public know that that's how it works.
Thank you. Okay, that's all I had. We have next we have an executive session. Oh, whoops, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just on those lines, as I recall, there were a couple of asks. One of them was that we were supposed to bring up, was it public safety?
He's going to cover that.
Okay, all right. Very good. Thank you.
If you're ready, I can talk about that and other things. I have a number of items to discuss. In looking out at the extended agenda, while it's on my mind, I would like to propose some adjustments. With the removal of the 10-year management agreement next week and going straight to a hearing on November 7th, then that leaves 2 items on the consent agenda for next week, so it'll be very short. And we did receive a request from a Don Osborne, and he's with Mercy House, and he would like to present to the City Council next week an overview of the project. And it's a social services outlet. It's got a new physical presence on the St. Pius Church. So he would like to present that to the City Council. So if you are open to that, I can contact him, let him know, and we can put that on the agenda. Because I'm looking out and the agenda is getting quite full as fall progresses into early winter, and it would be very difficult to put it on a schedule with it and compete against so many other items. So if that's okay with the council, I can contact him, let him know. Okay. And then also, if the council is okay with this, I had tentatively put the review and discussion of Amendment 1 for the interim prosecuting attorney consulting services on November 3rd, followed by approval on November 7th. I could easily put that together tomorrow, and I could place that on the October 17th agenda as review and approval. It's very similar to the interim Public Works Director amendment where we're just increasing it by $40,000. So I could put that together tomorrow and put that on the agenda for October 17th because November 3rd and 7th are very heavy agendas. So just looking out ahead. Let's see, I have a number of items to present to the City Council tonight. There was a press release about 2 weeks ago announcing 15 Snohomish County mayors, including Edmonds, Linwood, Breyer, participating in a new public safety coalition for a number of factors. The city of Mountlake Terrace wasn't included at that time. So after speaking with the mayor, I did call Marysville Mayor Naring. I did ask him if cities can choose to participate in the coalition at any time. He said the answer is yes. So I spoke with an administrative assistant at the city of Marysville. They told me to contact Nick Harper at the city of Everett. So I asked Nick what kind of participation fee is there with this, and it would be $3,750 for the city of Mountlake Terrace. So if the council is okay with the city joining that coalition, the mayor could sign a letter and send that to the 15-member coalition. And I did send the council a lot of information on this recently.
So Councilmember McCardle?
I guess I'll have to go back and look at the information. Just curious what that money gets us and what's the purpose of the coalition.
The coalition, their efforts are to fight crime and address safety issues. They've hired a consultant to help them focus their messaging and to look at those issues holistically, and so that's what you're paying for.
Anyone else?
And I should say, we have until November 30th, so the council doesn't have to decide tonight. You can let me know when you're prepared to express a position.
Councilmember Murray?
Thank you, Mayor. Would they come and give us a presentation on kind of what they're doing and their goals and how, I guess what it would mean to be a part of the coalition? It would just be helpful. I did look at what you sent over a little bit, and I guess I would love to learn more.
I can contact Nick, and I can request additional information for the city of Mayor. And the November 30th date ties to the next item that I'm going to talk about, not this item, so I retract that date.
There was a press conference. And the Como one, I think, is 10 minutes, 9 minutes, and it answers a lot of questions, but I have to find it. Go ahead.
I did click, I looked at the email, excuse me, I looked at the email Stefan sent, and there was a link on there that opened up and said exactly what this coalition's about, but then again, I don't know what that money's for. I mean, it's a think tank, and maybe to hire someone to think what we should do. One of the problems was the dealing with the law that with, I don't know exactly how to put it, but where it's okay to have up to so much drugs on you and it's legal, something like that. But issues like that are complicating the homeless in our communities. That was one item. But so you could read that, but I don't really know what the 3,000's for.
It's they made it into a 501 something.
Oh, a nonprofit?
Yes, and then it's to hire. I'm trying to remember. But anyways, it's all in there, so I have to reread some of that myself.
Yeah, I didn't read it in depthly. I just read a little bit. But there is a link to go to and read it, get some more information.
Okay, I will reach out and I'll obtain some more information for the city council, and I'll provide that to you. The next item relates to the establishment of a county health department and transfer of assets from the health district. I did provide information from the Snohomish County Executive's Office, and it is concerning real property. On May 31st, the Snohomish Health District voted unanimously to support the county's withdrawal from the district and transition health services from the community into a county health department. And so the district's building at 3020 Rucker Avenue in Everett will become part of the county's real property inventory and future responsibility. So you may recall that city signed a quick claim deed in 2018 for similar transfer of ownership for this building. So they're looking to cities to sign the transfer agreement and quit claim deed for that purpose. And I did provide that to the city council. And so then the building would become the health district's outright. And this is the one where the city has until November 30th to provide a response, but no later than November 30th. Speaking about deadlines that we talked about earlier. And I can place this on an agenda maybe as soon as Monday if you'd like to discuss this further and maybe take official action.
Need official action, or just thumbs up?
Okay.
Can we just give you direction, or do we have to?
You can authorize the city attorney to sign the agreement, and then it's either the mayor or the city attorney signs one, and then the mayor signs the other.
Oh.
But so or I could sign the other, the mayor or the city manager. So it'd be authorizing us, and I would actually put that into the narrative of what the council needs to do, into my summary.
So did you want us to do something right now, or did you want us to wait until the next meeting where we officially?
You don't have to take action on Monday. You have until November 30th.
Oh.
Just looking out, there are opportunities to put it on other agendas.
Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess maybe I thought question is more, I mean, it's a no-brainer. I don't know how much time we need to spend on it. I mean, can we just give you a thumbs up now and call it good? And not
You
have
could.
to make you do a whole bunch of work and write up a synopsis and
You
then,
actually could. You could authorize it. Okay, great.
let's do that then.
Giant, okay, excellent. Okay. Here's my notes.
Was there anything more?
Yes, there are. If
Okay.
I could find the notes that I had. I know they're here. Well, I think I recall them. I would like to say that the city has officially initiated the search for the city manager as well as the city engineer, so we are moving forward with that. Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
What service are we going through?
Prothman?
Which Prothman?
Greg.
Thank you.
Sorry, I had to think about that one. So that's correct, right, Leslie? Okay, thank you. And then also the city engineer as well. And then we are also initiating a request for proposal process to secure permanent services for the prosecuting attorney. So we are moving forward with that as well. So there are other positions that we're searching for as well. The deputy clerk is one of them. We've initiated that process. So we're really exceptionally busy, especially the HR manager, searching for these employees. So I think that's all I have right now.
Thank you. Councilmember Murray?
Thank you, Mayor. Stefan, can you talk us through our involvement in that city manager hiring process?
Oh, the city council will definitely be involved. The city council is the one who actually picks who the city manager is, and we will work with Prothman. We will actually lay out a process and communicate with the council to make sure that all the dates and times work for the council as a body. And we'll want to talk with you about how you want to conduct interviews as well.
Okay, I don't see any other hands. So do you have anything else? Stefan? Okay, thank you. So now do we go to our next agenda item? So our next agenda item is executive session to evaluate the qualifications of an applicant for public employment or to review the performance of a public employer per RCW 42.30.1101G. And that's going to be for approximately how long?
30 minutes.
30 minutes. And we have a 5-minute break. Okay.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
We are back from executive session, and no action will be taken. And we are now adjourned.
Those are the words we're looking for.
Recording stopped.